Welcome back to the Crash the Pond podcast. It is a Monday, October 2nd edition of the podcast. We are now Scott Harrington days away from opening night. It's closing in faster than ever. But I'm going to cut right to the chase here, Jake. Our long national nightmare is halfway over.
It's over.
Half of it is over.
Yeah, fair.
Trevor Zegras has signed a contract.
He has.
With the Anaheim Ducks.
I just want to say thank you. Thank you to Pat Verbeek. Thank you to Pat Brisson for not waiting until tomorrow or the next day to get this deal done. For doing it this morning just so that we have it, or so that we can talk about it on this show. They were really thinking about us with this, right?
Yeah. This just fell right into our laps. I remember this morning listening to 32 Thoughts and hearing Elliot Friedman say some positive news on the Zegras front. I don't want to get ever too excited, but there's been movement. And then I remember texting you and Derek saying, "Oh, does it get done today?" And sure enough, like 2 hours later, we get the news. 3 years, 5.75 mil. It's the term we expected. It's the AAV that I think we roughly expected. I think this is higher than what I expected.
I think I said 5.75, and I think you went lower to 5.5 when we did our prediction. Once we found out that it was 3 years, I think that I came in at 5.75. You came in at 5.5 to be a little different.
So there's a lot of news to talk about with the Ducks, injuries, roster movement. There's a lot to get into, but we're going to start with this because it is the biggest news. This will take up the bulk of the podcast. It's the face of the franchise getting locked up after a lot of kind of misery for a few weeks there.
Yep.
Before we get into the nuts and bolts, though, as we always start with these kind of big hitting news topics, what was just your reaction, your gut reaction, your emotional reaction when this news dropped, when you first saw it?
Excitement and relief.
Yeah.
Like there's no other way to put it. Just excitement and relief. I think excitement from the perspective of, okay, great. He signed. It's done. It's a good deal. It's a good deal for all sides. And relief just from the perspective of, we've done so many podcasts. We've had spilled so much virtual ink in Discord on Twitter about about the Trevor Zegras deal and where it's going to be. And I feel like, especially the last weekend, I think starting last Friday, it just felt so exhaustive, right? It felt so exhausting. All the talk, all the chatter around Trevor Zegras, all the different conversations that came out. And I think just in some ways how poor the organization looked, I think on Friday afternoon specifically. And I think just relief that this is done and it's not going to get dragged on any longer.
Yeah, I remember seeing it this morning come through on Twitter and just being excited too, because just seeing that Trevor Zegras picture, the headline, he's back, knowing that he's going to be on his way to camp if he's not back in Anaheim already. It's just a good thing. It's right. It's where he belongs. It's where he should have been from the start. But the headline here is just that Trevor Zegras is back, that he'll be in a Ducks uniform within 24 hours on the practice sheet, and kind of all is right in the world when it comes to Trevor Zegras.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, to get into the contract a little bit, because unless there's anything else you want to touch on there, just brief reactions.
No. That's the headline to me. We'll get into all the ramifications, but yeah, the contract it's what we expected. 3 years. I think that, again, I don't want to skip too far ahead to my argument section, but I'll just say that I think my gut reaction on the contract itself is that this is just a fair deal for both sides. A lot like the Troy Terry deal. I don't think either side is a quote unquote winner here. It's just, this is what Trevor Zegras is worth at this on this term, and he got it.
Yep. And I mean, we talked about it, right, with Troy Terry specifically, of if you look at Evolving Hockey's contract projection model, right? I believe and I'm trying to pull up Troy Terry right now because I have Trevor Zegras open currently. But Troy Terry on a 7-year contract was projected to be 6.77. So they came in a little bit above that, I think at 7 times 7, but within the range that you would expect right there. And then if you look at Trevor Zegras, right? Evolving Hockey, 3-year term, 5.7 was the projected AAV. Yeah. So, I mean, the Twins do amazing work. If you aren't supporting them, by the way, this is a subtle plug. We are not getting paid at all by the Twins at all.
We pay
but
them.
go to evolving-hockey.com. Subscribe to them. They're doing absolutely amazing work over there. But yeah, 5.7 mil is what they projected him at, and this is right where this came in. So I think from the perspective of Trevor Zegras got paid what he's worth, the Ducks had to give in and pay him that. And so it's a good deal overall where the Ducks are not paying more than market value and Trevor Zegras is getting paid what he is worth. So overall, I think it's a win-win. It's a 3-year deal. The ramifications from a long-term impact are that there are going to be 2 more years after this contract is up where Trevor Zegras will still be a RFA. And he's going to really, I mean, Elliot Friedman kind of said it best, I think, on the 32 Thoughts podcast, more so with talking about Drysdale, but I think it really works with Zegras also. But the Ducks held the CBA hammer in some ways with this contract, with the fact that Trevor Zegras had little to no leverage outside of essentially what's happened, which is that missing games, getting into camp, starting to get closer to the season. And
raising a stink through the media.
Yes. And the thing is, that's all gonna that's gonna happen in 3 years' time, basically, again. But Zegras is now gonna have more leverage on his side with arbitration, and so I think that's the biggest thing here. Is this was the only time that really Pat Verbeek had this amount of leverage, and so in 3 years' time, there's gonna be a whole lot more that Zegras has in his power with arbitration, and we saw what that was able to do for Troy Terry.
Yeah, if I were a Ducks player, knowing that I'm arbitration eligible, I would just file as soon as possible once the offseason starts, because it's like, you know what, Pat Verbeek, I don't want to wait until the training camp to get this done. Let's just have this, like, because it sets a deadline on the contract to be signed. And I think that helped Troy Terry a lot, regardless of how maybe unsavory it was, at least it got it done. But yeah, I think that the 3-year deal for the Ducks, the 3-year term, I should say, is a good one. We've talked about it on past podcasts, but just to summarize, it avoids a situation where where Trevor Zegras has only 1 year left until he's a UFA, and then can potentially wield that against the team to get traded, like we've seen with other RFAs around the league. Timo Meyer is probably the most recent example, but we've seen other cases of that as well. Matthew Tkachuk. And so that is a win, quote unquote, from the Ducks side, that they avoid that. But they didn't really concede anything else because they didn't really win on anything else because Trevor Zegras got his AAV that he wanted and that he deserves. And also, I mean, for the Trevor Zegras side, this is a better deal for him. Bridge deals are better for players than they are for teams, because Trevor Zegras, if he continues on his growth arc in 3 years, will be worth a lot more than, let's say, an 8x8 or an 8x8.5 that he could have signed. Now that we've seen a lot of other young stars sign. Now, from the Ducks' perspective, and The Athletic had a good article about this, but from the Ducks' perspective, Pat Verbeek mentioned at least twice in his comments that Zegras still has work to do defensively. So if they really truly are not sold on Trevor Zegras as of yet as a complete player, or I should say not sold enough to sign him to an 8-year deal, then this 3-year deal is a win in that way.
Yep.
I do think, though, this is my opinion, that given what we've seen from Trevor Zegras, this could end up proving costly for the Ducks on the back end.
Yeah.
And that's not a bad thing. Like, I hate when people, make these statements as, oh, you're ascribing good or bad. It's just, that's just what it is. You're probably going to end up paying more on the back end.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess if you want to look at it from the long-term cap implications, right? At the end of that 3-year deal for Trevor Zegras, there's going to be a lot of money kind of coming off the books. You're going to have Cam Fowler's contract coming up. You're going to have Radko Gudas's contract coming up. So a 3-year term, in some ways, also from the long-term cap perspective, does help the Ducks because they are going to have money coming off the books that they can then reallocate to Trevor Zegras at that point in time, whereas maybe they weren't comfortable. I mean, the other part of this, right, that we don't talk about all that much because we don't really know, but Pat Verbeek did say, right, at I think it was that pancake brunch thing, that, right?
It's a pancake brunch now, no longer a pancake breakfast.
Oh, sorry, pancake breakfast.
Okay.
That he was going to spend the Sam Ellio's money like it was his own, but he has essentially, when they're contending, the free reign to spend up to the cap. And so I wonder how much of this is using the leverage and going with a 3-year deal that is going to be slightly slower money now, with the understanding that they're going to have to pay more at the end of it, but they're fine with that because they're going to be contending then. There is that perspective of it.
Maybe. I mean, that's the thing too. The business aspect is that
Yeah.
the Ducks aren't necessarily a big money maker right now as a business. And so this kind of kicks that can down the road. But as we were just discussing, you're making the can more expensive later on. So
Yep.
if they're okay
And
with that, but I personally don't view why we're here as that, but we don't know. So I
Yeah.
can't rule it out.
yeah. And so just to kind of give everyone kind of, I guess, the thought process on why this is market value for him. I mean, this is a guy that has put up 2 straight 60-point seasons.
Yep.
For the Ducks. And I went back and looked, and I was curious who was the last player that did that for the Ducks. And at the end of the day, points, as much as you and I don't always like just only looking at points, those matter when it comes to these contract hearings. The last player to do that was Ryan Getzlaf. There's not been a player to put up 2 straight 60-point seasons for the Ducks outside of Troy Terry, who did it also over these last 2 years, since Ryan Getzlaf. Like, Rickard Rakell did not do that. Corey Perry also did that, but that was Getzlaf was the last person to do that. So as much as you want to see him take that step and put up even more points, he is one of the biggest drivers in point production on this team. And I think that we're going to see that take another massive step. And I think within, 2 years, this is going to look like a steal of a deal going into the last year of the contract.
Yeah, and I think that that's the excitement now for me personally. Just is going to be watching Trevor Zegras grow now, right? Because we've been kind of stuck. We've been so stuck in the past in discussing this contract over and over, right? What are you willing to pay for based on what he's done? Everything is about these last 2.5 seasons, and now we can actually start to look ahead. How can he really get incorporated into Greg Cronin's system? How will Greg Cronin leverage Trevor Zegras' talents? How will he make him a better player? Like, there's just so much more intrigue now in a positive way than there was 24 hours ago. And I do find it interesting, just the timing of this, right? Because if you think back to where we were Friday and recording a Patreon podcast where we were both kind of delirious, I think
We're
that
both tired.
It's just interesting that, just 48 hours later or 72 hours later, after really, I think you started seeing the most negative pushback on the Ducks publicly. You had different reports about the gap in AAV. You had reports about, where he's valued among the team. Like, there's all those different things. And then 2 days later, boom, the deal is done. Like, not saying that that's what made it happen, but it's certainly interesting that once it kind of became maybe obvious to the Ducks, hey, this whole standoff thing is, we're not coming out looking like the good guys here. And maybe that's when they caved.
And for those that missed it, Dave Pagnotta at the fourth period reported that Zegras was coming in around $5 million. Mm-hmm. And so that was really the first, because we recorded our last main show prior to that report coming out. And so Dave Pagnotta put that out there that the Ducks were coming in at 3 to 4. Trevor Zegras was around 5, was the exact verbiage that he used. Some people, including myself, ran with that as being, he was asking for only $5 million. Turns out no, but he was asking for in the 5 range, which is he ended up at 5.75. And so what that kind of tells me here is that essentially Pat Verbeek had to come up to exactly where Trevor Zegras is at. And 5.75, like we talked about, is a perfectly valid valuation of where Trevor Zegras should be paid at. And so it may be exactly what you're saying, where that negative media attention was out there, because on Friday it really felt like everything was going.
There was definitely a concerted push,
because you had 32 Thoughts. You had Elliot Friedman basically stating that someone told him if the Ducks aren't careful, they're risking it here. You had Darren Drager on the Ray and Dregs podcast saying this is in the mud right now.
Everyone was talking.
And Dave Pagnotta had that article that he put out with that information. And it just kind of really led to this slew of negative press, I think, for the Ducks. Yep. And then, so I wonder if it's that. It also could simply be this of Trevor Zegras' play here was waiting out camp.
Well, and it seems, oh, sorry, go ahead.
And as we were getting closer and closer, we are now within 2 weeks of the start of the season. And they were going to, a contract was going to be signed at some point. Even if they thought that, even if Zegras was going to miss games, at some point a contract was going to be signed. And so there may have just been a situation where Pat Verbeek realized, shit, this is not going to go anywhere. He's not going to come down. And we're at the point where I really need to get him into camp to get him ready for the season, or else it's really going to negatively impact the team, which makes me look poor.
And the perception, yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, and to your point, just kind of putting all these pieces together, it seems like Pat Verbeek is the one who picked up the phone,
Yeah.
right, to get this done. Because if the Ducks were arguing for 3-4 and Zegras is in the 5 range, I mean, the Ducks just got hosed on that, right? Like they did not get anything that they were looking for AAV wise, which I don't want to pivot to this quite yet.
Okay.
But knowing where the numbers were, or at least having a decent idea of where the numbers were. Because again, like we only have a few sources telling us what the numbers were.
Yeah.
But it seems like the holdup was more on the Duck side than the Zegras side, because if Zegras was asking for something that, as we talked about, was fair and commensurate to where he's at based on past production, then it's clear, like to me, at least my own opinion, the Ducks were the ones slowing this thing up. Like trying to get something that was just way off from what Zegras was asking for. You know, if Zegras had been asking for 6s, 7s, I get it. But 5s, that's just going
That's where he
market
should.
value.
I mean, that's where his contract ended up, right? So
Yeah.
I think that this is also important here. Is I think we were getting close to where, at the very beginning of all this, I kind of said, sure, it's not ideal if he misses camp, but it's also not the end of the world. And I think I had said where if we end up we're doing a podcast on the 2nd of October and he is still unsigned, then it starts getting into an issue and you're starting to be concerned about him being ready for the season. And so I think that we basically are at that point though, where him signing today gives him just enough time to get fully ready for the season. It's 12 days. I think if he ends up at camp tomorrow on the ice, he'll have 12 practice days, and it actually sets up pretty nicely for the Ducks, with the fact that they don't have their first game of the season until Saturday the 14th. So everyone else starts on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday of that week, but the Ducks, for whatever reason, aren't playing until Saturday the 14th, and so they almost have a mini camp with just the main roster guys next week. And so this is going to be a really nice chance for Trevor Zegras to get into camp, get this week to kind of get up to speed, and the next week it's going to be all the main roster guys there.
Yeah.
And he's able to really get up to speed with Greg Cronin's system. And so I don't think losing the last couple of weeks is really going to be detrimental to him. Sure, it's not ideal, but I think he's still going to have plenty of time. And there's a couple people in the Twitch chat and YouTube chat kind of wondering if the Pagnotta report was reliable, and it's logical to assume if they settled at 575, then Zegras was at 6 to 7. And I think I get where you're coming from there, but when all of the dots are pointing in one direction, all of these insiders are going in one direction, and kind of more so stating this is a Verbeek risking it with how he's being, and he's being this really tough negotiator, right? And you have a similar thing being said by Darren Drager. It all adds validity, I think, to that David Pagnotta report, who, for as much as David Pagnotta does get flack and does from us from time to time, he does have sources and does have information there.
Talks to agents, talks to players. Yeah.
Yeah. So I do think that this is something where there's not really any, even if this was being leaked by Pat Brisson, I don't know the benefit. Like, what's the benefit of 5-7 or around 5 being leaked to Dave Pagnotta here? Because that just screws over his negotiating power, right? In terms of terms of negotiating for more money, right? If it comes out that he's asking for that, then Pat Verbeek could say, okay, great, we're going there also. But
yeah,
go ahead. Sorry, I'm just gonna say I pretty much believe that Dave Pagnotta got that information, and that's correct. And there's also that information. I mean, whether you want to believe it or not, what's the Shane O'Brien's podcast? Shane O'Brien put out around 5 also.
Yeah,
and so there were multiple.
They're pretty connected with the Ducks.
Yes.
Look, I'm declaring a moratorium on this whole like source versus source thing. Like the contract is signed. Like whatever, it's done. But I want to make another point here.
Okay.
Which is the Pat Verbeek part of this.
Okay.
I have come away from this entire thing with a diminished view of Pat Verbeek, because if we look at the two big high-profile RFA signings thus far, Troy Terry and Trevor Zegras, all of the reporting that we've gotten in both instances is that Pat Verbeek is playing hardball, right? That has been the consistent theme that's come out each and every time. And I don't necessarily have a huge problem with playing hardball, but I do think it is just true that you can run the risk of maybe angering your players, right? That you can potentially tarnish relationships. Not saying that it will happen, but that's a possibility. So to me, if you're going to play quote unquote hardball, really wield the hammer, do what he did with Terry, bring it all the way to the goal line of arbitration hearing, all of that, I think I want to see some actual benefit to the team. I want to see, okay, well, they clearly got a concession here, or they clearly got a concession there, what have you. And thus far, this is just true. There's just no obvious sign that that's happening, right? The Troy Terry deal, 7x7, perfectly fair market value, which means that it wasn't a win for either side. It's just a good deal, a fair deal. Same thing with Trevor Zegras. You brought up the evolving hockey model. It's right on the money, literally on the money. So if Verbeek wants to make his reputation as a hardball player, go right on ahead. Be that guy. But I hope he's seeing, A, how it can affect your reputation, right, among players, and also, B, let's try to actually get some benefit from it here. Because if all this reporting is true, which maybe it isn't, maybe it's completely off, then there's basically no evidence that Pat Verbeek's tactics yielded any positive for the Ducks here. So we'll see. Jamie Drysdale is the shoe left to drop, but I'm not very enthused with how Pat Verbeek has both handled it and just the results he's yielding. But like I said earlier, A, it's not my money, and B, this isn't a quote-unquote bad deal for anyone. It's just fair. It's a deal that could have been signed months ago. There's just nothing remarkable about it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think kind of where you're getting at is that if you're going to wield this hammer and go to these lengths, I think you would expect the deal to be more team-friendly than it ended up. And I think as someone who wants to see players get paid, I'm in some ways happy it's not, because I want to see Trevor Zegras get paid what he is worth. And this also goes to show that him holding out got him the value that he deserved. And so I think that the tactics that Verbeek, let's just say, for instance, I mean, Trevor Zegras, I think last week was probably at the 5.75 value. Who knows where he was at before that? But Pat Verbeek came up to him. And so you can say that's Pat Verbeek realizing that it's time to move on, and negotiation is no longer is not worth it anymore, moving on, which is something that's important, but that should have been done weeks ago so that Zegras would have been at camp. And I guess that's probably where both you are at. All right. You and I
just don't see why it got to this point.
Yeah. And so I don't really know. So there's some people out there, some people, DB Lowry in our Twitch chat, bring this up, more so bring up the fact of soured relationships. I don't think that's where this got to necessarily. It doesn't.
We just don't know.
We don't know, but I think that it probably didn't get to there. But that is just me simply making an assumption. We will find out probably in the future.
I mean, it was reported there was frustration.
Yes,
but it was on both sides. So,
correct,
which makes sense.
And so I think probably in the next, I don't know, couple weeks, months, year, probably we're gonna forget all about this, and what really matters the most is the on ice results, right? Yeah. And I think that is what's going to matter in terms of long-term Trevor Zegras being a Duck. It's not going to be this holdout. It's not going to be the hurt feelings or frustration that ended up happening from this. And so I think that kind of narrative that surrounded this is something that can be thrown out the window. But I think the one thing to kind of take away from this, right, is this going to be a trend for how RFAs are negotiated with in the future, specifically with guys coming off of ELCs? And I think Drysdale's a bit of a different situation because of him not playing.
Weird case.
A very weird case, and so it's very tough to kind of figure out with him. But I'm very curious with this Trevor Zegras situation if Mason McTavish is going to be handled the same way, if Leo Carlson's going to be handled the same way, Olin Zellweger are going to be handled the same way. All these guys are going to be handled the same way, because I think that is a concern if every single player you deal with is this. And so I think that's just something I'm at least going to keep an eye on as it moves on, because I think it's concerning if that is the trend. Also, I mean, Solomon should be thrown in. Z Hamster said, I mean, isn't Solomon heavily involved in contract negotiations? Negotiations
well,
also,
yeah.
Yes.
But at that point, we then have to rattle off every executive that's involved. I mean, if that's the trend, then I think that's a concern from my part, because at some point you're going to piss someone off in that You're
sense.
just wasting time.
That too. And so I think if this is a one-off, whatever, move on. All done, good to go. So, I mean, B-Dolls brings up last couple pods. You guys talked about how it's no big deal. Gave examples of players losing regular season game. Now
that's just not what I was saying.
No, but that's something I have said.
Oh, okay. No. But I'm saying that's not what we're saying. I mean, I don't really feel like repeating myself, but I will anyway. I'm saying if you're going to play this game, you need to have results to show for it. And I don't see where the Ducks won in this deal. So we're not saying it's a major problem. It's just not really. And
I even think that, like I said, this is probably the last possible time you could get this deal done. And for better or worse, Zegras had to use his leverage of waiting into camp to get a deal.
Well, my own belief on this, which is informed by things that I've heard, my own belief is that I think that this was as much Pat Verbeek playing hardball as it was Pat Verbeek's view of Trevor Zegras. Because I just refuse to think that if Pat Verbeek really truly believed in Trevor Zegras as a player, right? If Trevor Zegras was like a Mason McTavish, that we would have gotten to this point, right? I mean, and I think that part of the reason that Pat Verbeek really started to feel heat is when this narrative started developing of, oh, maybe the Ducks don't value Trevor Zegras or they don't value their young players, because that's really problematic. And if you'll notice in Pat Verbeek's comments, he went out of his way to mention multiple times, we value Trevor Zegras, and I'm sure they clearly value him at $17 and change million. But to me, this just feels like Pat Verbeek not being totally sold on Trevor Zegras. And, if I just personally don't agree with that, I think that that's an incorrect evaluation. But if you don't believe in the player, okay, sign him to the deal, but there's still no need to drag this out. Coach him up.
Do you give him credit for realizing that he was at the point where it was going to be detrimental because he was going to start missing out more camp? I mean, and coming up to Zegras' price.
I mean, if you've lit a house on fire, do you get credit for realizing you lit it on fire? I don't know. You still lit the house on fire. And I'm not saying that's what happened here, right? This wasn't at that stage. I guess he figured it out, but I just really think that this was just not a good look for Pat Verbeek. This is, again, my opinion. People can disagree. I'm really stressing that because this is reasonable minds can differ on this, but I think this is a bad look for Pat Verbeek. It's not sending the right message to the player. This doesn't motivate Trevor Zegras. Like, I don't think it's really as motivational to Trevor Zegras to drag him through this as opposed to saying, hey, here's the contract we think you're worth. Let's get it done. We believe in you. Let's go. Right? This to me sends the opposite message. And I really hope that Trevor Zegras sticks it to Pat Verbeek for the next 3 years and plays his heart out. And by the time the next negotiation comes around, that it's no big deal it gets done because he's proven himself to Pat Verbeek. Because again, Pat Verbeek went over it twice at least in his comments of, hey, he even said specifically, we need his defensive game to be shored up. And while that's true, I just don't think why on the day that you sign this face of your franchise type player that you feel the need to point out his warts. Like, it's just poor form all around. I do not have a good opinion of Pat Verbeek's handling of any of this. People can disagree with me on this. Come at me all you want. I have all my notifications muted on Twitter at this point, but that's where I sit as of today.
All right. So critique's done.
Yeah.
I needed to get that off our chest a little bit because even though we both love the deal, I think it's a very good deal for both sides. I think Zegras got paid his worth. The Ducks got paid.
All's well that ends well at the end of the day.
Correct. I think that it's just I think you see this deal, and I guess I'll kind of end it with this. I think you see this deal and you wonder why it took so long to get to this deal. I think that is, I guess, the end of it all.
You don't get credit for hardballing your way to a number that's a neutral number, right? Like that shouldn't require that. And people will say, "Oh, you're not in the room, you're not blah blah." I think that don't assume what we know or don't know. I will say that, but just think about it intuitively, right? If you have to do all of this crap just to get to this number, you shouldn't get praise for that.
Yeah, and I think just moving on. This is a good time, or this is the best time I think for him to get, or not best time for him to get signed. I think right now is when you're starting to get to that.
It's the next best time.
Correct, because he's going to have plenty of time. He's going to have plenty of time to gel. I think Greg Cronin is going to have enough time to work with him. I mean, do you think he plays on Thursday? I mean, do you think he plays Thursday and I think Saturday?
I think Saturday for sure. Thursday's
a home game.
I mean, he probably has to do all the physical testing and stuff. I think they ramp him up, and I think he doesn't play on Thursday.
I think he plays Thursday because it's the last home game, and the one on Saturday, I think it's Saturday, not Sunday, is in Tucson.
Yeah, I would be a little hesitant to play him right away.
I mean,
because
he's been skating. It's not as if he hasn't been skating.
But skating and playing in an NHL game, even if it's preseason, are two different things. Skating by yourself or scrimmaging with college players like Jamie Drysdale is doing, not the same. Guys aren't out there trying to hurt you in those scrimmages. So I don't know.
I think he plays Thursday and Saturday.
I mean,
I don't think he plays tomorrow, obviously.
Well, that would be malpractice.
Yes.
But yeah, Thursday, fine, but definitely Saturday.
Yeah, I think those two games, and then you get a whole week to ramp up to the first game of the regular season.
Yeah, and like I really, after that long rant, I just want people to know that the headline here is that Trevor Zegras, the most fun player we've seen in a Ducks jersey in a long time, is signed. We're going to get to watch 82 games of him, hopefully, maybe more, who knows, and we get that for the next 3 years at least, and that's just a good thing. And regardless of how this all happened, the bottom line is that the right thing happened, and hopefully it all just improves from here.
Yep, I'm definitely very happy he did not miss regular season games because
that would have been just so awful and pointless.
Yeah, I felt like on Friday it was trending that way, and
that's
so,
how I felt too. Yeah,
and
but
so
I feel like maybe that's how people wanted us to feel.
Yeah, fair. But I think hearing that from Friedman this morning, I think really calmed me down a lot on it, and I think also in some ways, once the difference came out about the 5.75, or that's where around 5 is where Zegras is at. I figured that they would be able to come to a deal because they were a lot closer than I thought they would be. So, all right. With all of that being said, this episode is brought to you by Green Chef. So Green Chef is a CCOF certified meal kit company. Green Chef makes eating well easy with plans to fit every single lifestyle. Whether you're keto, paleo, vegan, vegetarian, gluten-free, or just looking to eat more balanced meals, Green Chef offers a range of recipes to suit your preferences. And so Green Chef is the #1 meal kit for eating clean. You can feel your best during busy fall season with delicious nutrition-approved recipes featuring clean ingredients with no artificial colors, sweeteners, high fructose corn syrup, and limited added sugar and limited processed ingredients. Choose from recipes featuring lean proteins like turkey and sockeye salmon, barramundi, tilapia, scallops, and shrimp, certified organic whole fruits and vegetables, organic cage-free eggs, and plenty of whole grain options. So kickstart your clean eating routine this October with 80 plus weekly options featuring nutritionist approved and foodie approved recipes. Choose from our 8 meal preferences, including new, quick and easy, calorie smart, delicious discoveries, and plant-based options. And so they're the #1 meal kit for eating clean. And you can eat clean the easy way with recipes that help manage your weight and support your wellness goal without skimping on flavor. Feel your best with nutritionist approved recipes, including calorie smart meals under 650 calories, protein-packed meals with at least 40 grams of protein on average per serving, science-backed Mediterranean recipes, and flavorful plant-rich vegan and vegetarian meals featuring certified organic whole fruits and vegetables, good-for-you grains, and plant-based proteins. And sustainable, you can feel your best this fall with seasonal recipes featuring certified organic fruits and vegetables, organic cage-free eggs, and sustainably sourced seafood. And so 100% of their seafood meets the Monterey Bay Aquarium Seafood Watch rankings of certified best choice and good alternative. And with Green Chef, you're reducing your food waste by up to 23% versus grocery shopping. And so everything is delivered to you in a way that is super easy to deal with. You can feel your best with nutritionist approved recipes packed with clean ingredients to support your healthy lifestyle and taste great too. You can get dinner on the table during busy weeknights minus the fuss with their new 4-person kit from Green Market. They provide everything you need for dinner organized in one convenient kit bag. Think less waste, easier cooking, and easier cleanup. So you can go to greenchef.com/60CTP and use code 60CTP to get 60% off plus free shipping. And so once again, you can go to greenchef.com/60CTP and use code 60CTP to get 60% off plus free shipping. That's once again Green Chef, the #1 meal kit for eating well.
All right, here we go. So let's move on to anything else on Zegras. Anything else that is top of mind?
I mean, Donovan brings us up in our YouTube chat saying he gets a deal that both of you love, and the narrative from you guys is you don't get credit for getting a fair deal. I think it's just more so the timing about it, and so just with how long it takes.
That's just not stating correctly what I, at least what I said. I'm saying if you play hardball, the presumption is you're doing so to get something that's better for you, right? That is the point. You are negotiating in your own self-interest. That's what everyone does. That's fine. So the presumption is that should, if you're going to go to those lengths, which Pat Verbeek did, that is undisputed that Pat Verbeek played hardball, you would like to see an element of a win for you. And if the result is just a net neutral, either the other side was being completely unreasonable and you needed to do that to get to the neutral number, or all the stuff you pulled didn't work.
I think Elliot Freeman. Sorry.
And so anyway, my takeaway is I'm not giving credit for the number based on the tactics. Like, good that you got the number, but it makes the tactics look silly, is what I'm saying.
I mean, I think Elliot Freeman says this as a saying, but is the juice worth the squeeze in this situation?
Correct. And it wasn't. It like this. Opinion. This contract, this number, this could have been done weeks, months ago. Like, this is just not something that seems to be the result of, oh yeah, we really grinded him down, right? At 3 years, this is exactly where he should have been paid. And what about credit for not overpaying or giving out term for a player he doesn't believe in? What about credit for?
The term was agreed upon months ago, or like a while ago.
Well,
per Pat
I also
Verbeek's
don't.
Comments also.
I also disagree with not believing in Trevor Zegras. So
yeah, and
you're swinging and missing there.
And that's also with the assumption of, and to be fair, this is I think where we were at last week. Of we don't know anything. We didn't know Trevor Zegras where his camp was at, right?
Yeah.
And so I think the report of him being around 5 changes things in the mentality of things. Because if this was a situation, I think that this is an important thing to hedge on, because at the end of the day, we aren't in that room, so we don't necessarily know everything that's going on with it. But if per se, Zegras is at 6 or at 7, and the Ducks were at their 3 to 4, and they settled on 5.75, then yes, this is a good deal from Pat Verbeek's perspective, and they had to work to get to this point. But if that reporting is accurate, and Trevor Zegras was around 5, and that's where he was at least for the last week or two, and it took this long to get to this number, then that is a concern, right? And I think that's, I guess, the important thing to emphasize here is that it just depends on where Zegras was at, and I think we don't have any indication necessarily that he was at the 6 to 7 range outside of us making the assumption that makes sense. Because logically, I get where people are coming from of that making sense, but I think the reporting of him being at 5 mixed with some information kind of we've heard, it puts it at around 5 value making more sense.
There's nothing out there that we've heard or that's been reported that would suggest Zegras is asking for something astronomical in this specific 3-year.
Yeah. The only thing we have is that from like Friedman and those types of guys that he knows his worth and he's not going to back off it.
Yeah. So, people can disagree. They don't like that we're criticizing Verbeek, which is weird because sometimes people are like, you guys are too nice to Verbeek. Can never win with everyone. I'm completely fine with that. Welcome all opinions. Welcome all disagreements. Just be cool about it, and we can have a great conversation.
Regardless,
that's the point of the podcast.
Regardless, 3 more years of Trevor Zegras is a very good thing. 5 more years under club control, 6 more years under club control because there's 2 more off seasons of RFA status. So good news overall for the Ducks, for fans out there, for myself, because I ordered a Trevor Zegras 30th anniversary jersey.
Oh, nice. Okay,
wait, can I briefly mention something on that 30th anniversary jersey?
Careful what you say.
Why is the jersey delayed till 2024? It hit me this week that this is a jersey that is very, very, I really, really like the jersey. And it's something that I'm so excited to see on the ice because the overall look and what we've seen from the players, the gear, everything they have, it looks absolutely amazing. The pants that we saw Trevor Zegras wearing looks just top notch. Like, this is going to be such a good look for the team. And they're not going to be available to fans until the season's halfway over. Yeah. And I get that it might be, I mean, the Ducks are saying it's an Adidas issue. And so sure, if it's an Adidas issue, there's not a lot you can do.
What leg are you standing on here?
That's just an absolute failure, I think, overall, right? Is that the fact that this is a one-off singular season jersey and it is not going to be able to be in fans' hands until halfway through the season, yet you have the Flyers having a new home and away jersey, and they are going to be, they're available for fans right now.
Adidas is out of the picture soon, so probably seems like it's a good thing.
Quite a shame for everyone out there that people are not going to be able to have that 30th jersey until 2024.
Probably a bigger shame is the fact that Alex Killorn fractured his finger in a preseason game, and he's going to be out up to 6 weeks. 4 to 6 weeks is the timeline. And now Pat Verbeek's big offseason acquisition, the big contract that we've much discussed on this podcast, he's going to miss a lot of games. And, fractured finger, thankfully, bones heal. It's not like a muscle injury where that could really be a dicey recovery period. This is a lot more defined, but it's still a huge bummer because Killorn was going to be an integral piece of what Greg Cronin was going to try to do. And now the Ducks have to kind of pick up the pieces and reshape that top six, at least for the time being. Yep.
Yeah, and it's definitely a shame. I mean, it's a shame also that we weren't able to just see him in the beginning of this year because, I mean, we don't know if by the time he's back, if Leo Carlson's going to still be on the Ducks. Like,
probably not. Yeah.
Like, we just don't know. Like, and so it's a shame that we're not going to be able to see him in the lineup with these guys. And so it's just a shame. I guess the good news from it is because it's a finger injury, right? He's going to still be able to have conditioning on the ice. He's still going to be able to skate. He's still going to be able to work out for the most part. And so
you just got called crazy in the chat. So.
I guess so. I brought that upon myself. So at least he's going to be able to do that, but it's a bummer. It's a bummer overall. I guess the good news is that there's going to be an open roster slot in the top 6 or top 9 potentially. So if someone like a Nikita Nesterenko or Pavel Regenda is able to impress, they're going to be able to really jump into that spot, and there's going to be an open spot for them there.
That's who it's good news for, is those guys in the fringes, those kind of 13th, 14th, 15th forward type guys. Also, we have someone in our chat here saying, now I lost the message, still skeptical on Cronin, first-time coach with no pro experience. Doesn't worry anyone. I mean, he's been coaching pro hockey for decades.
Yeah.
Just not NHL hockey. But he's also been an assistant at the NHL level, so wouldn't worry on that front, at least. But yeah, so on the Killorn news, though, it's a huge shame. I'm very curious to see what Cronin will do. We don't really have great indications yet because, these lineups are so kind of all over the place, patchwork. Yeah. Some games it is more roster guys. Some games it's more young guys. So my pit theory is that Zach Kassian is going to make the team because of the way he's being used. And also now this just kind of opens that door a little wider. I haven't seen enough for Brett Leeson to make me think he's a lock for this roster. I hope I'm wrong because watching Zach Kassian play,
he's been so bad.
But knowing what Pat Verbeek values and what he thinks of this team last year, the lack of pushback, the lack of sandpaper. If you watch Zach Kassian, you look at that game in, I think it was Palm Springs over the weekend. Zach Kassian is in every scrum. He is, anytime a guy gets bumped, anytime a guy gets pushed, he is sticking up for his teammates. And, you can say what you will about Zach Kassian, but players love that. Coaches love that. Hockey people eat that stuff up. They'll eat it, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. The kind of sticking up for your man, camaraderie, and whatever we think of it, I think that is valued. And I personally don't think Zach Kassian is a good NHL player, and I would not give him a roster spot. But he's here. He's doing what he's asked to do. He was put on a kid line, basically. I think he was playing with it wasn't Tracy. Anyway, it was a couple young players, and he was the protector. He was filling his role, and I just would not be surprised if Zach Kassian is on this roster to start the season. But that's just me.
This might be copium. I don't see a necessary spot for him on this team.
Some fans are going to like him because of the way he plays.
100%. Yeah. I just don't like... I guess you could waive Brett Leeson. I don't know if Pat Verbeek would necessarily do that. So I think looking at the current roster, right, there are 12 healthy forwards currently on this Ducks team. And so there's essentially one roster spot, maybe two open. I just don't know if Pat Verbeek is going to see signing Zach Kassian as eventually Alex Killorn and Isaac Lundstrom are going to be healthy, and then Cassian's just going to have to be waived at that point in time. I don't know if he necessarily sees that.
Or someone else gets waived.
I don't necessarily see that as being worth it as compared to potentially giving a guy like a Pavel Regenda, like a Nikita Nestorenko, a shot up there. And so I don't know if that. Well, first off, I don't think it's worth it. I don't think it's necessary. I don't think Zach Cassian's a good hockey player. I don't think having him on your team really does a whole lot for you overall. And so I'd much rather see, it's almost like an opportunity cost of that spot should be going to someone that could really use that spot.
I agree with you.
Use that ice time more. And so I just hope that's where they go. And I mean, DB Lowry says, how problematic would Kassian really be as a 13th, 14th forward? Who would he be holding back? And while sure, you could maybe make that argument, it's still just taking up a roster spot that shouldn't be used. I mean, if he's a 14th forward, you could then have a Olin Zellweger on your roster, right?
Yeah. Well, speaking of the blue line, we should probably stop talking about a PTO.
I've made that point a long time ago. Per my rules. Don't worry. Don't talk about PTOs until they've signed. So, yeah. I mean, to be fair, he's still a PTO. He is not signed to a contract.
Correct. But Ducks made a move this weekend, and I think it was the type of move that a lot of people have wanted to see Pat Verbeek make over these last 2 years-ish, is claiming a young player off of the waiver wire. And given where the Ducks finished last season, the waiver priority was all theirs, and they claim Lassi Thomson, 23-year-old defenseman out of the Ottawa Senators farm system, and just a very interesting player, right shot D, especially with Jamie Drysdale still being unsigned. We have no idea. That one I have no feel on. That one being still undetermined. This is just a very interesting move, and I mean, this is not really a take on Lassi Thomson. It's just more of a general take, but the Ducks have so many interesting young defensemen within the organization right now. Like, if you look at who's going to play for San Diego this year, it's just going to be so much fun to watch. But Lassi Thomson.
Yeah, Lassi Thomson. So basically what Lassi Thomson is, this is from the EP Ringside guide on him, but basically he was drafted in the first round because in junior he was a creative offensive defenseman, carry pucks across the zones, walk the blue lines, pull off spin moves, all these different types of things. But as he's become a pro and jumped into the AHL, it's really changed, and you don't see those offensive flashes anymore from him. He's more of a steady, consistent player, defends the rush, sticks to his checks, distributes the puck on the blue line, but he just hasn't really stood out per them in that point, and basically his revised ceiling from them is more so of a bottom pair shutdown role type of skater, but they added, that being said, if he gets to play with more creative teammates who can give him space to jump in the play and use his skating ability, some of its offensive patterns could resurface. And so what this screams to me when I first saw this felt like almost like a Jamie Drysdale, not replacement, but while Drysdale is holding out, this is kind of that same, not archetype, but similar type of idea, being a good skater.
He has to be in the NHL.
Yeah.
He's got to go through waivers.
Well,
again.
That's the thing. Yeah, they claimed him off of waivers. So if they can't, the Ducks just can't send him to the goals. If they want to send him down, they're going to have to put him on waivers. And the Ducks have the first waiver claim because of it's based off right now how last season went. So every other team in the league, all 30 other teams, because Ottawa 31. Does not get a claim until the end. And so every other team will have a chance to get him. And then if he clears through all of it, Ottawa can just take him back and put him in Belleville. So it's not as if he's guaranteed to go to San Diego if he fully clears. Ottawa has a chance to take him back and put him in the minors because he fully cleared waivers. So there's just really no way that Lassi Thomson ends up in the AHL. It's a situation where he's on the Ducks or he's going somewhere else, pretty much.
Probably.
And so that's why this just screams to me, okay, Drysdale's holding out currently or is not under contract. I want to stop using the word holdout because he is not holding out. He just does not have a contract. Yeah. And this is someone that's a right-hand shot defenseman that is going to be able to play some games potentially and has some shine to him still after being a first-round pick in 2019. And so I would imagine If he does not impress and Drysdale sign, then he's put on waivers, claimed by whoever it is, or goes back to Ottawa, the Ottawa organization.
Yeah. Watching him very briefly and messaging with David St. Louis from EP Ringside, just the skating is what really sticks out to me. Like, he moves really well. And like you said, similar in that kind of Jamie Drysdale archetype. I don't think he really has, I mean, kind of like Jamie Drysdale, undetermined if he really has the offensive side to his game, but moves well. And if I look at the Ducks blue line right now, I just love the addition. It gives them some more mobility. It gives them some more depth. And someone that, hey, if he works out, like if he just becomes a solid 6th to 7th defenseman, the Ducks haven't had those guys in a long time. Those guys are valuable to your team. And worst case, or whatever case you want to describe it as, if he pops, if he becomes a solid rotation piece, you can always flip him later down the line. Like, this is a good to great move by Pat Verbeek. So I don't want to hear that I hate Pat Verbeek. Like, I am compartmentalizing my analyses here. This is a good move. I really like it. And I think that if you want to be down on it, maybe the down aspect is, this could take away an opportunity from someone within the system. And I think that that's not unfair. Like, this definitely doesn't help the chances of, I mean, Drew Hellison's gone now.
Yeah.
Pavel Mintyukov, right?
But
Olin Zellweger, like, it doesn't help their chances of sticking.
I don't think it really impacts them at all, to be honest.
Well, it's just one less chair.
It's one less chair, but he's a right-hand shot defenseman. And so realistically, they weren't going to be playing on the right-hand side. They weren't going to be a healthy scratch either. So I just don't view this as necessarily impacting them at all in terms of them making the team or not making the team, because it's just a different position. So it's not like he's taking up a spot in the roster. I think if anything, what this is a sign to me is that Urho Vakanainen is not long for the Ducks.
Yeah, poor Urho. I mean, he really has had a really rough go of it with the injury. But if you look at the blue line now, without Sans Drysdale, Cam Fowler, Radko Gudas, Ilya Lyubushkin, Jackson Lacombe, I think those are all locks. Jackson Lacombe is a lock to me. Don't at me because I won't see it. Lassi Thomson, Lassi Thomson is a lock because of what we just talked about. I think Robert Hagg is a lock. It's not something I'd really love to say, but at that point, you're at 6 defensemen. So who's really left, right? Jamie Drysdale is going to come back, and then that's really your 7. So I just don't really see a way. I mean, I don't really see a path right now for a guy, for like a Zellweger or Mintyukov to stick with the team. But I mean, if they want them there, if they think that they should be on the team to start the season, they will be there. Like, it's not just musical chairs. If the team wants them there, they'll be there.
Yeah, Robert Hagg could be the 7th defenseman pretty easily. And so Zellweger's, I don't think Mintyukov is going to be on the Ducks. I think that if anyone, it's going to be Zellweger, because I think that you look at, I'm just laying it out there. When you have the head coach of the team stating in a game where he thought they were horrible that he was the only good player, the best player on the ice, and also singing his praises in the games prior to that, that is stating something. And the fact that he played him in back-to-back games. So I think that even though you've put together a fantastic video highlighting both his pros and cons, I think that they really like what they're seeing. And so I think that he has a pretty decent shot to make this roster, at least to just see what he does in an NHL game. And then if he does not look great, I think that he ends up getting sent down easy and Hagg plays games after that. Like,
that's what it boils down to, is if they want Olin Zellweger to just see what he can do, that's fine. Like, I accept that argument. That's fine. But if we're basing it on how they've actually played, Zellweger is nowhere, like, I don't want to say nowhere near, but him and Mintyukov are not distinguishable to me in how they've played. Like I think
between each other?
I think Mintyukov, I think at a minimum Mintyukov's been better, but I don't think there's a world where you can say Zellweger's been better.
I think the ELC slide part of it also might impact it. Might.
Well, Mintyukov is slide
He's eligible. Yeah. That's my point.
Oh, okay.
Zellweger's not.
Yeah, so I don't know. I just think
impact it.
I just don't think that those things are big enough reasons. I just think it's going to come down to, do they just want to see Zellweger? And like, I'm not of the opinion that Zellweger shouldn't play in the NHL this season. I just think that right now, based on how he's playing, he doesn't look like a bona fide NHL defenseman. But if you're curious about seeing him as an organization in that setting, and maybe he can grow into it, that's fine. Like that's
I don't think it's a bad idea to just put him in for a couple games and see what he can do. I don't think it's going to hurt.
It's totally fine. And
it's not going to hurt his development.
It gives him a little boost of confidence that he gets on the team. Like there's all that. Like I am not against him being on this team. I just, again, my whole basis is just watching these guys play this preseason so far. That's it.
Yeah. And I think it's of note that both of them are still up, right? I mean, Noah Warren is also still up.
They've both played well. Like I don't think Zellweger's played poorly. It's up and down to me.
I mean, I think Tristan Leno and Noah Warren are up to just get as much time with the team as possible before going back to junior. Like that's what that feels like to me. I don't think either of them make the team, but I think it is of note that both Zellweger and Minchukov are still with the team as basically
Zellweger was gone this time last year.
Correct. But both of them are with the team as basically every other D-man has been sent that is eligible to be sent to San Diego has been sent down. I
am so excited to watch the goals this year.
Yeah.
That AHL TV subscription is gonna hit different.
Yep. So anything else that you want to hit on before we get to questions, or you want to briefly kind of? I mean, it's pretty simple to me.
We should just get into questions because we're at an hour.
Okay, fine. We'll get into questions. Yeah. All right. So we're gonna start with our Discord. So go to patreon.com/crashthepond where you can support us there. If you support us at the $1 tier, you get access to our Patreon exclusive Discord where there's a podcast questions channel where you can leave questions for us for the podcast. And so please go find us there, patreon.com/crashthepond. So let's see. Doom Grouser said, and we had a lot to talk about. We didn't talk about Jamie Drysdale too much, so we'll get to that in these questions.
There's not a whole lot to talk about, to be honest.
No. Doom Grouser said, with the focus shifting to Drysdale's contract, what are your thoughts on where Drysdale realistically slots into this Ducks depth chart for right defenseman in 3 to 5 years based on prospects currently in the system? And he listed Drysdale, Vakanainen, Moore, Warren, Leno, Thompson, and then he's like anyone else that he might be forgetting.
I think Jamie Drysdale, when the dust settles in 3 to 5 years, will be a second pairing defenseman.
Tyson Hines? Is Tyson Hines right-hand shot also?
No, I think he's a lefty.
Is Noah Warren the right-hand shot then? I thought one of them was right-hand shot.
Warren is a righty, yes.
Okay. Oh, he listed him, yeah. But in terms of that depth chart, I would say that Drysdale's one or two.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
That's what he's getting at. So I think Vakanainen shouldn't be on this list. I don't think Thompson will be on the Ducks in a month. I don't think he'll be in the Duck system in a month. So I think it probably goes, for me personally, Drysdale, Leno, Moore, Warren.
Leno, yeah. I mean, I think you could quibble between Leno and Moore if you're like a Moore believer.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really want to dig into watching some of Tristan Leno because I feel like I've just been ignoring him. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll come out with a new opinion.
Yeah. All right. Appa the Unbannable says, rank your top 3 soups.
Okay.
Ramen and fuck.
Let's save that one for later. Save that one for later.
I don't have to come back to this though. Just do it quick.
I'm passing on it.
All right. Clam chowder, ramen, and udon. There we go.
Okay.
Isaac said, who are the top 2 trade options you see from our young D-men?
Ooh, that is a good question.
Ooh.
I mean, the top, honestly, the best one is Olin Zellweger. That is the best one. Like, he is the most attractive piece, I think, to other teams.
I think he also could be one of the most impactful guys, so that's why you don't want to move him.
Correct. But I think, as I was kind of talking about last week, I feel like has a bit of a wider range of outcomes. And so if you're trying to prognosticate and sell high, he could be one.
Jamie Drysdale, maybe.
Tristan Luneau is another one. Like, this could be peak value for Tristan Luneau. Right
now. I mean, that's the tough part here, right?
Well, the question is, who are the best trade pieces, not who I would personally trade.
Well, so top two trade. Fair, okay.
Yeah,
fair.
Like, I'm not being asked to trade. Like, I'm not being asked who I would trade or who I want to trade. I'm just saying these are
most
the best
value.
Pieces.
Probably yes. Drysdale and Zellweger, or Drysdale and
people
Minchukov.
Are just like people are sensy today. I think like Bonnie's now upset that I said that. Like, y'all got to listen to the words. Don't get mad before you can recite to me what I actually said and what the question was. You have to read the question, read the call of the question, and read the answer before you can opine. Because most people skip at least one of those steps.
Brad said, wow, Bonnie set you off a little bit there. Brad said, pod question.
I'm sick of the takeaway.
Pod question. Over or under 50% Thompson craps the top 6 if Drysdale doesn't start the season, Drysdale does.
What are the odds?
Do you go over or under 50% on those?
That he's in the top 6?
He's in the lineup. So A is over 50% if Drysdale doesn't start the season. B is under if Drysdale does.
I think he's in no matter what.
Okay. I don't think who comes out on the right side if Drysdale starts the season?
If Drysdale starts the season, I just think that Thompson's he's on the roster.
No, but playing in the...
Is that not an option?
Cracks the top 6. So playing games on the defense.
I could see Lyubushkin coming out. Lyubushkin's just a flyer 1-year guy. Like, he's not a monolith in this lineup to me.
Okay. I doubt they traded a 4th-round pick for him. I don't necessarily see them playing Thompson over him. So that's why I'm saying under 50% if Drysdale does, over if Drysdale doesn't.
You're probably right, but I wouldn't play Eli Lyubushkin over Lassi Thomson.
Connor Vidston Stan account said, "What is We'll save this one. How about that? I'll save this one about Lou. Jeffrey K said, I remember there being talk about Drysdale potentially aiming for an 8-year contract once we saw Sanderson sign his 8.05 times 8. If Drysdale is looking for an 8-year deal, what AAV is reasonable?
Probably 8 by 8. That's probably what what he would be asking for.
Well, reasonable is one thing. Comparable, I guess, is another. So Evolving Wild has him at an 8-year term at 4.411. Jake Sanderson, though, I think on an 8-year deal was similar to that. I don't think he was...
Jake Sanderson wrecked the model.
Yeah, Jake Sanderson... what? Oh, yeah, give me one sec. I have to change something here in the way it's listed. But yeah, he got way over what the model is. So that kind of screws up everyone else if they're going to start using him as a comparison. Yeah, he's projected 8 times 7. Yeah. So $4 to $5 million, I think, on an 8-year deal for Jamie Drysdale. Let's see. Mitch Brown's beloved said, now that Z is locked down for the whole season, what is your point projection for Z this upcoming season?
I'll go 70 points.
I'll go 80.
I'll go conservative and say 70. But
I'll go
I think
80.
80 is a good guess too.
Yep. The question from Lou actually was, is Metalingus the top 3 wrestling theme song ever? Yes, it is. There you go. One of the best. Brad said, with the injury to Killorn and Zegras in the fold, who are the top 12?
Oh, okay. Why don't you take this one?
Okay. I think it's honestly just who's on the roster right now on Cap Friendly. It's Terry, Henrique, Zegras, Silverberg, Strome, Vetrano, McGinn, Jones, Carlson, McTavish, Carrick, Leeson.
Yeah. That's pretty much it. I don't see that really changing. I think they may have been asking what the lines are, but no. I think that's
it's kind of crazy that it feels like a foregone conclusion right now that Carlson's on the Ducks to start the season.
We could be wrong. We don't know for sure, but it just feels like for where he's at in his development, there's no harm in getting him in for NHL games. There's no reason not to, basically. And he doesn't look so out of his element so far.
Yeah. Let's see. Lactic said, pick 3 Ducks players, one that will perform better than expectations this year, one that will not be with the team after the trade deadline, one that will have the most penalty minutes.
Oh, that's a good one. Most penalty minutes. Does Radko Gudas get a lot of penalty minutes?
Don't know.
Okay, I'll go Max Jones for penalty minutes.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Player that will defy expectations. Is that another one?
Perform better than expectations this year.
I'm going Trevor Zegras. I feel like people are really down on him, and just like his overall game, I think he defies that. Player that's gone after the trade deadline. I think this is an easy one. Starts with Ilya, ends with Bushkin.
That's where you're going with it. Okay.
Is there any chance? Oh, Adam Henrique. Yeah. Although I feel like it's
don't take my answer for me. Wow.
I think it's less probable that Henrique.
Wow. Taking my answers. Who will perform better than expectations? Sam Carrick. Not with the team after the trade deadline. Adam Henrique.
Come to my side. Sam Carrick.
And one that will have the most penalty minutes. Most penalty minutes. I'll go with
Zach Kassian.
No. No. No.
Oh, let's go.
I'll go with Jakob Silverberg. Don't ask me
Okay.
why. I just think maybe the speed's past him. He's going to take a bunch of penalties.
John Gibson.
Justin Beck 11 said Carlson is on the team. Zellweger is on the team. Killorn is healthy. What are the power play units? Not what you think the coaches will do. What you guys would do. All right, let's each do one unit.
Yeah, I mean, we can build ours together.
Yeah. So
Zellweger at the point.
Zellweger at the point.
Carlson on the right side, on the right flank.
Okay.
Trevor Zegras. Oh man, I don't know what you do.
Terry in the bumper.
Terry in the bumper.
Zegras on the left. McTavish net front.
Yeah.
Or should Carlson be net front and McTavish on the half wall?
I think you have McTavish in front or in the bumper. Like, keep it all fluid, So like that's just your starting position, but Leo and McTavish can rotate, right? Like they can throw the other team off with that, but those 5 guys for sure.
Yeah.
No question.
D-Rock said, "What are you looking to see out of Lassi Thomson?"
Oh man, I mean, I'm not gonna pretend I've watched him play a lot, but I'm just very curious because the rap on him seems to be that he's kind of lost some offense in his development, and he's become more of a shutdown guy, which is fine. Like, hey, becoming an NHL role player is a great outcome for a player, but I'm curious to see if he can revive any of that playmaking, any of that offensive touch.
Yeah, because I think having a guy that has a steady gap, good defensive shutdown type player, I think is important, especially as someone
those guys help you win.
Especially guys that can skate. And I'm not talking about like your prototypical like big bludgering defenseman. I mean, I think Erica Branson's a guy that comes to mind when you think of that type of profile of a shutdown defenseman. Doesn't seem like Lassi Thomson is that. He's more the modern day shutdown guy that is able to really stick with guys, skate with guys. I kind of think actually him with Cam Fowler would at least be somewhat interesting to me. I think your point, you and I were chatting before the show, that you don't know if basically Lassi or Thompson would be put in that type of situation where he's going to have to be playing in these high leverage situations with Cam Fowler. But Fowler, if you look at some of the guys that he's played best with, I mean, his best run as a Duck was when paired with Simone Dupre, who was a guy that was a good
Lassi
skater.
Thompson isn't really the same type of player though.
No,
I don't think.
I mean, maybe I'm just completely misremembering, but Simone Dupre could skate and was able to have good gap control when he was at his best. He wasn't overtly physical. He was just really good at shutting down plays.
Yeah, there's just a size difference for me there, but I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
so
and so that's I don't know if that really sums up what I'm looking for. But
the thing is Lassi Thomson just doesn't have the NHL experience yet.
True.
And so I don't know if you throw him to the Wolves playing with Cam Fowler.
Yeah.
I mean, Lassi Thomson has played 18 NHL games in his career so far. So
yeah, but I mean,
it's gonna be a big jump.
I mean, to be fair, he's the same draft class as Jackson Lacombe. Jackson Lacombe has played one? Like, it's different circumstances for sure.
Jackson Lacombe played 4 years of college. Like, Jackson Lacombe had one long, great, uninterrupted development run. Like, I'm so high on Jackson Lacombe right now.
My point here though is that age-wise, there is still development there. It just because he has not played significant NHL games does not mean there's not an NHLer in there. That's where I'm getting.
I think he's in the lineup.
Okay,
you're the one kicking him off the lineup with Drysdale.
Yeah. All right. Connor Vidson's Stan account said, assuming that Zellweger, Mintyukov, and Carlson spend the majority of the season in San Diego, what are your way too early Calder predictions for the 24-25 season? Will all 3 of them be in the Calder considerations? I think Carlson will be.
Wait. If they're in San Diego
for this season, way too early Calder predictions for next season.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they should all be in it. I think Leo Carlson wins it though.
Yeah. Terry Save just said, do we think that this is how Verbeek handles contract in generals? Are we going to see a repeat with McTavish next summer? I mean, that's what I'm kind of looking out for here, right? And what I was kind of mentioning is this going to be a trend or is this a one-off? If this is a one-off with how he handles these, then sure. Water under the bridge, move on, not a big deal. And as some people had mentioned, it's a good deal for both sides, so move on, nothing really to critique. I guess the concern is this how he's going to handle every RFA coming off an ELC moving forward?
Yeah. And it also kind of loses its like power if you just do it every time. Like people aren't like the other side's not going to bite basically.
Yeah.
So.
Brad says, how long will it take the team to feel comfortable and acclimated to Cronin's system? I'm going to say 20 or 30 games.
I mean, it's also such a new group. Like, it's just, there's a lot there. But yeah, I mean, 20 to 30 games, All-Star break, like, that feels right. But we'll see.
Yeah.
Maybe Cronin is a great coach, and he'll just have them playing that way right away. We'll see.
Tussle, I think this is just like an open-ended question for us. What else has a 15% chance of happening before the season starts? I've got 15% chance. I'll say Minchukov making the Ducks.
Okay. There you go.
There we go. One last question from Brad. Who do you see as the true veteran leaders on this team, and do you see Terry expanding his role as a mentor to the kids? I mean, true veteran leaders is Fowler, Gudis, Killorn, Strome, Henrique.
Yeah.
So, Creepin' Sandwiches of Fascism said, what are the odds Jamie sits out more than 5 games, and what would you do to grow the game more internationally?
Have games in places besides Europe.
Play games and have a game in Mexico.
Yeah, Mexico, Australia. They just did one in Australia. But yeah, just like, not that I don't like, I think the European fans, it's great when they get NHL games, but they have their own domestic leagues that are really popular. So if you really want to grow it, go to places that don't really have hockey or don't have it at that level.
And I think one other thing here is that if you go to those places, you have to go back. Like, you can't just go to Australia once. You have to go back. And odds Jamie sits more than 5 games.
I'm gonna go low,
15%.
But that one's gotten weird, so I don't know.
I'll go 15%.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And now we're gonna go to questions from Twitter. Let me just go to my DMs very quickly. This came from Troy Terry's Confidence. Question for tonight's pod: as we approach the start of the season, Verbeek is looking to add either a top defense pair or an elite first line. Who you got? Holzer Larson pairing or the Delorier Grant Rowney line?
Like, which one I would prefer?
Yes.
Oh man,
it's a joke. But
okay.
What would you rather add, that pairing or that line?
I think at that line, Carter Rowney was decent.
That line was so bad. I'll go Holzer Larson.
Jacob Larson was like, I was deleting a bunch of files off my laptop today, and I found an old clip of a Ducks 3-on-1 against Vegas in the COVID season, and Jacob Larson had the puck.
Is that why you sent that?
And he almost screwed it up. Like, he overhandled the crap out of the puck, and he put it on Max Comtois' tape to put it away. Yeah, I sent you guys a clip of a shift of a...
I was so confused.
Steel Comtois Terry line, and they look good. And now 2/3 of it are gone. But
I was so damn confused about what that was. Let's see. Let's see. Mike saying I missed a few questions. Oh, I did. Where did those come from? All right, we have a couple more in Discord, actually. We'll get to the non-related questions. I'll skim through them in Discord once we get through all the Twitch questions. Solani Sandwich says, thoughts on the Kelsey Mighty Ducks hat flex. Fantastic hat. Malarkey said, do you believe Verbeek when he says Z is a core foundational piece for the Ducks' future? I don't know, actually.
I don't really fully believe him. No.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Tiki Lore said, with Zegras signed, does Pat letting Simon Benoit walk in free agency become his biggest blunder? No, I think Simon. I keep saying Simone. I don't know why. I think letting Simon Benoit was the correct move. He was not worth a roster spot. The blunder, probably the biggest blunder, is letting Sonny Milano walk.
Oh yeah. That's a way bigger blunder than Benoit.
Yeah. Shocking 911 said, what do you think we get for Zegras when he is traded? If he's traded, they get an absolute haul for him because he's going to keep producing.
Because he's an RFA. He's more tradable this way with the 2 years remaining at the end. But let's not go there quite yet.
I don't think it's going there. Hey Odiflo said, was part of Verbeek's negotiation strategy a psychological tactic to add an additional chip on Zegras' shoulder?
I mean, what a waste of time if that's true.
Yeah, definitely a waste of time. Do that in the off season, then sign right before the camp.
You're allowed to just talk to the player and tell him what you want.
That also gets into the Bob Murray camp of abusive behavior in some ways.
Well, I wouldn't go that far. I would not go that far. But that is just Yeah, you're flirting with the wrong realm when you're doing shit like that. So
Yep. All right. So with all that being said, we're going to start getting to our Twitch and YouTube chat. So please, if you have questions in the Twitch and YouTube chat, please throw them in with question at the very front of it so we can get to that. So if you're listening to this podcast on your favorite podcast services, please check us out at twitch.tv/crashpond, where if you have Amazon Prime, you get one free Twitch Prime gaming sub each and every month, where it does help out more than you can imagine. You just have to hit that subscribe button every 30 days, and you can be just like SJ Hawking, who resubbed for his 20th month, and Lactic Acid, who resubbed or who subscribed to the first time. So thank you both so much. And then if you want to support us another way, go to our YouTube channel. We're really trying to do a big push over there. Felix is putting out some great videos. I've been putting out shorts from the podcast. Go to youtube.com/crashpond and please subscribe to the channel, like our videos, and please support us over there.
Yeah, we've got 47 people from YouTube in here right now.
Yeah. So if you're watching this, enjoying it, and not subscribed, it's very easy. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and also, if you enjoy it, you'll get notified every time we go live. Ducks has questions, some questions for us. Assuming the Ducks show clear signs of progress, are there any interesting UFAs you could see or would like to see the Ducks target next offseason?
Oh, man. So I have not really thought at all about the Ducks, about next summer's UFA class.
It was a lot better when Austin Matthews was in it.
Yeah, without Matthews, let's see. Stamkos is up, so that's not happening. William Nylander's UFA, and that's the one everyone loves to talk about.
William Nylander as a free agent would be an interesting signing, depending on what the deal is.
I mean, he's gonna get PAID, so I don't know. Toivo Teravainen could be a fun one. Could help the team. But yeah, doesn't look like there's any big game changing names. Jonathan Marchessault will be a free agent next summer. Imagine that. Marchessault and the Ducks. Duck Killer joins the Ducks. Corey Perry is a free agent again.
Bring him home. Bring him home, Pat.
David Perron, Jordan Eberle, Anthony Mantha. It's not exactly a who's who.
Yeah.
Also, Brent Seabrook, it says he's a UFA, and it says he's on the Lightning. He got bought out, right? Or something?
No, his contract got traded there.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
LTR.
I was so confused for a second.
So he also said, do we see the Ducks make a trade for a legit difference maker this/next season? If yes, what type of player/position would you guess we go for? Winger.
Yeah, forward for sure, and probably winger. And I would expect that to happen next season, not this season.
I could
but
see
you
it
never
happen.
know. You never know when
it's
a situation just unfolds out of nowhere.
I think there's a reason the Ducks were in on DeBrincat.
Yeah.
Yeah,
they're targeting that kind of player for sure.
Yeah. Yep. And I think it's one of those things where you cannot say, well, this is the year we're going to target that, because you don't know who's going to be available, right?
Yeah.
So you have to keep an eye on who's available, and if it's a fit that you like and you're able to make a good deal and give up players from your position of strength, which, keep in mind, we all love the D prospects. There's only 6 defensemen that can play in a game. Unless, I guess, you're Dallas Eakins and play 7 defensemen. But there's only 6 defensemen that can play in a game, and the Ducks are, like 10 deep of potential NHL defensemen?
They have a lot of guys.
So, use those guys to leverage that for your position of weakness, which is scoring wingers.
It's very unlikely all these guys will end up being Ducks.
Yep.
Put it that way.
And then he also said, for Felix, who do you think has the better season this year between Montreal and Anaheim? Also, who do you think has the better future as of right now?
Well, given that I predicted on our Patreon pod that the Habs finish ahead of Detroit, and did I say Ottawa too? I think I may have.
I think so.
I'm going to say the Habs just as a hopeful blind fan, but putting on my analyst cap, it's probably the Ducks.
Can I have a bone to pick?
Okay.
I have a bone to pick. More so with national media. I was listening to the DFO show today. And
oh boy.
I feel like and maybe this is more so not national media, maybe it's more so just them.
Can I cut in really quickly?
Okay.
When has Frank Seravalli ever had a good opinion on the Ducks?
Well, it's not just him, it's Jason Gregor. And I think that
Jason Gregor too. Put him, all of them.
I think this is a prevailing thought process that I see throughout national media from time to time, though, is essentially the Ducks are just going to be a basement dweller. And it's possible they are, for sure.
I mean, we had them, what, 7th in our prediction? So
I think I had them up at 6th, but that was me being hopeful.
You said that was you being hopeful, so.
Yes. But I think that in some ways the I think the Ducks are never, this is just kind of what I thought about was, I feel like the Ducks are never going to get the respect in terms of actual evaluation of the roster and in terms of where they're going to be at and making their next step until it's already happened. Like it's every single year it's going to be okay, they're bad. Okay, they're going to be bad. They're in a rebuild. They're going to be bad. And it's not going to take a step until they just make the jump.
Well,
right?
I think there is some basis though. Like this roster is not drastically different than last year's. There's a lot of unknowns. Like I get the hesitancy.
I think the defense is a lot different.
Yeah, but like in terms of how you feel about it, it doesn't look like, oh, all of a sudden I'm sold. This is a great blue line, right? And so I understand why you'd be skeptical. I mean, hell, I have them 7th in the Pacific. I am skeptical. But I just think that unless you follow this team very closely, you're not going to put in the time to say, oh, yeah, that's a team that could maybe be a little tiny bit surprising and finish 6th as Jake has them.
Well, yeah, but I just feel like
you have them finishing 6th, so like, are you really
Fair.
that much different than these people?
Fair. But my point is that the thought process of the defense, they're basically like the defense has nobody's on it, like Jackson Lacomb's playing, and it's like I get it, but you have would have that same type of guy in maybe like Ottawa per se, and there would be a whole lot more conversation around that guy and being an NHLer into that spot. So or Vancouver, for instance, with Frank being in Vancouver this week, like. It's more so just a minor bone to pick, and it's always going to be there with the Ducks and national media.
I mean,
and
just say you hate that show instead of putting on national media, because it's always them. So I would pin it more on the DFO show than national media as a whole.
Okay, fair.
Yeah.
All right.
Let's see. Frank categorically always has shitty Ducks takes, so I'm just not really putting much stock in them.
Yeah. Michael B said, question maybe more for Felix. Is the correct way to pronounce Luneau's first name Tristan, or like Edom and Carol were saying we're going with yesterday?
Well, yeah. I mean, Tristan Luneau is not...
No, Tristan or Tristan, like the emphasis on the
So in
second.
French, it's pronounced Tristan. Tristan. So Tristan is still inaccurate, but it's closer. The actual, the final, the N at the end is silent. So you're not even supposed to pronounce the N. But yeah, so the way they're doing it is better, but still wrong. But I applaud them for trying. But it's not Tristan.
Sean Fight said, why do I see Macho Man when I see Gudis? I see a Civil War general. Yeah.
Man, he's... I really would love to see him with Fowler, just because I think that'd be a great pairing.
Yeah, I do too. Andrew Fisher said, thought Verbeek wants... Oh, that's not a question. Michael B said, question, does Luneau get any NHL game? Thought he's looked really good, especially yesterday.
Luneau?
Yeah, I don't think he does.
Well, I don't think he's making it because he can't go to the AHL. I don't really see him taking up a spot. There's already so many guys up front. I have yet to really dig into watching him, so I can't really say, but yeah, I think he's bound for juniors. So,
yeah.
There you go.
All right. Twinkie Boy said, question, Cassian, he makes the team a solid role, beloved by his teammates and fans, gets extended past the season. Will you both apologize on this show for how you've spoken about him? If Zach Cassian...
Will you eat a hat?
If Zach Cassian makes the Ducks and has positive metrics and is not a complete
Now you're changing the hypothetical.
He said solid at his role. That is important for being solid at his role. Being solid at his role is not being a black hole for shot metrics and being on the ice and getting caved in anytime he's on the ice. So if he is not caved in every time he is on the ice and is able to be a replacement level player, I'm setting that as the low benchmark for him of just being replacement level.
Will you eat a hat?
Then he will get an apology from me on this show.
People want to see you devour a hat.
Devour the hat on your head. Wait, what did you say you would eat a hat for?
I don't know.
You said it for something.
Hold me accountable because I'm not going to remember myself. So
yeah. DB Lowry said, question, what do you think of Cronin so far? What do you think the system will be that he employs?
I mean, he's talked a lot about kind of playing this high pressure style.
Yep.
And you saw it a little bit against Arizona on Sunday where the Ducks got a goal basically just off of great forechecking. And they've had a few shifts here and there when it's if part of it too, it's the NHL guys that are out there against lesser talents, but they've had some really good forechecking sequences, and I think that that's what he wants, is a team that applies a lot of pressure, that's responsible defensively. But I don't really have much thought on Cronin thus far. Like, he's fun to listen to, but I will judge him based on how this team plays when points are on the line, personally.
Yep, and
when the actual roster is playing, because right now it's just so hodgepodge every game. So
yeah, so I think that's gonna do it so far for the questions in these two. So let's just get to the off-topic questions that I held off for a bit. Connor Vidston Stan account said in our Discord, and by the way, if people have off-topic questions or on-topic, either way, Twitch, YouTube, throw them in. We're kind of in the hodgepodge portion of the show.
We have a few more minutes here, so
yeah. What is Lou's beef with Japanese food? First rice and now this. They said seafood's pointless and overrated.
I mean, I've been away from our Discord for the last few days, and I intend to stay out for a few more days. And I gotta say, not being exposed to just crappy takes constantly, it's been kind of refreshing. But yes, Lou has the worst food takes.
I was about to say, you can just say Lou.
Yeah. Well, no, you're no angel in this conversation either.
What did I do?
You have some pretty poor food takes.
Do I?
You do.
All right. And then where is this? Creeping Sandwich is a fascism said favorite thing you've bought from Trader Joe's, and what's your least favorite?
Oh man. Favorite thing from Trader Joe's. I mean, what category do you want to go here? I mean, basically their entire like dessert aisle is
their
just
entire
great.
like frozen aisle also.
Dessert and frozen is kind of their hallmark.
I mean, all of it though. I mean, they're frozen. They have their like fried pesto pizza. That's so good.
Yeah.
Least favorite. What's my least? There's been some things that I've gotten that I don't love.
Their meat selection isn't the best.
Their chicken shawarma has really upset my stomach.
You know what's really random, but that's true about Trader Joe's? Their blackberries always have the right texture. They're always not too soggy, not too crunchy. It's really weird. Trader Joe's blackberries. Check them out.
Salem's making her appearance behind me. All right. DB Lowry said, question, Jacob Larson versus Curtis Foster versus Mark Fistrick. Who are you taking? Mark Fistrick.
Yeah, I didn't watch the other two outside of Larson, so I'll pick Jacob Larson. I'll pick prospect Jacob Larson. How about that?
TM said, what do you guys think about Zellweger's above average stick rotation during training camp? Apparently he keeps 7 sticks on hand at all time.
That's interesting. I did not know that.
I did not know that either.
I mean, hey, if I had free sticks, I would do stuff like that too.
Hell, if I had to pay for a stick, but I was getting paid to play hockey, I would have that many sticks on hand.
I mean, he's such a, he's always out there doing stuff. He's so active. So he probably breaks he probably breaks more sticks than the average player, I would imagine.
Yeah, probably. Let's see. I think that's going to do it for us tonight.
Oh, yeah. Dark chocolate PB cups, DB Lowry. I was eating some of those today, and I was like, damn, I have no self-control. So
you're getting called out, by the way. Plant Red saying, first you attack Bonnie, now you say you're glad you're not on Discord.
I did not attack Bonnie. I defended myself from Bonnie. Two different things.
Wow.
Two much different things. And glad I'm not on Discord. Yeah, I am.
Wow.
For now.
As you're about to plug our Patreon.
For now. No, I mean, so for those, just for clarity, just so people don't get it twisted, I'm taking a break from things that are very, very distracting for me. And Discord is one of those, not because of anything bad, but just because when I'm in there, I get caught up in conversations and I end up staying in there longer than I should, and I end up not doing things that I should be doing that are productive. So that's all.
Yep. Sure.
And I
just throw up.
And I hate all of you. That's really the real reason.
There it is. All right. Why don't you land this plane?
Have you seen me try to land a plane? Have you not seen my flight simulator streams?
That was unintentional, but perfect.
I want to bring those back. I don't have time, but those were fun.
Please don't.
Why not? They were fun.
Were they?
Lou and Dacian were the two people that would watch them. Those were like the height of boredom for me.
They were your ride or dies.
Yeah. Yeah, remember the one night we streamed
FIFA.
and
Yeah.
we bought that stupid game that we couldn't make work, Nidhogg?
No, it worked. It worked.
I can't believe you convinced me to spend money on that
It was like $3.
just for content.
It was like $3.
And then I whooped you in FIFA, so it worked out.
No, you did not.
It worked out. There's tape. There's evidence.
No, there's not tapes. The tapes have been burned. Actually, no, wait. There are no tapes, actually. Twitch deletes after a certain period of time, so they have been deleted.
That tells you all you need to know, folks, if you had to burn the tapes.
Last one left asked me, Jake, who's Adam Copeland? He only knows Edge. Well, he's the rated R superstar. And, I mean, do you think you know him, though? I think you do.
I don't know what's going on.
Correct.
You were like weeping on Twitter about wrestling.
I was teary-eyed yesterday.
You were like, I'm shaking.
I was.
Doctors now. Get this man some doctors.
Adam Copeland debuting in AEW. This promotion that I've watched every show of, besides a couple of Rampages and like a Collision, that I have watched since its incarnation. And to see someone like Edge, who I grew up watching, with one of the most iconic theme musics in wrestling, make his debut with that music, with them re-recording the You Think You Know Me, and that just hitting, it just drove the emotions out of me. Sometimes you can't control it. You just have to go with it.
Well, I do believe that because, so for all you NBA fans that are listening, a very large trade happened in the NBA last week. Damian Lillard traded to the Bucks. After months of reporting he was going to the Miami Heat. And I was in class as this was happening. And afterwards, my friend told me, he's like, yeah, man, you audibly gasped when that happened, like as class was going on. So emotions, sports, that's what we love.
Yeah.
I'm hoping to have some of that watching the Ducks this season.
Yeah.
Instead of... that's why I'm so happy this is over, because I'm not going to lie. I have grown to detest these insider conversations, like who's more trustworthy than who, like blah, blah, you don't know, they don't know. It's just like, I'm just done with it. Can we... like, I don't want to think about this again for like years.
I mean, Drysdale is still unsigned, so there's that.
Yeah, I care about that less.
Fair.
I'm fed up. Yeah, thank you, Diplo. I'm fed all the way up. I had to mute my entire Twitter today. Like, I've never had to do that. I muted all notifications except from people that I follow, because I was just getting a shitstorm for voicing an opinion. So, anyway, and that's fine. People can respond, but if you act like a dickhead in the replies, you get blocked. So
this is
anyway.
This is definitely how I expect you to land a plane, though, just like in Flight Simulator.
Wow. Well, I mean, yeah, I'm crashing the plane. But on that note, crash the pond if you want to help support the show. A very easy way for you to do that, number one, is to join our Patreon community. This is really a great way for not only for you to support us, but also to get more benefit for yourself. For $1 a month, you get access to our patrons-only Discord community. And this is a great place for you to connect with other diehard Ducks fans. It's really also a great place to get news. They're always going to be popping in there right as they're happening. You don't really even need Twitter when you're in our Discord. But there's also great channels in there so you can discuss other things. We have a great football talk channel. Wrestling, if you're a wrestling fan. I know we have wrestling fans listening to us. For $5 a month, you get access to 2 bonus podcasts. And we have a great one coming up this month. Jake and I will be doing a draft of sorts where the loser will have to bear some consequences later in the season. Yes. I forgot about that. But yeah, patreon.com/crashthepond. Please. I think you'll get a kick out of it, and you help us keep crashing the pond. Anyway, that was terrible. I'm sorry. I apologize. You can also leave us a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts. This is really easy. It takes just a couple minutes, and it goes a really long way to supporting the channel or supporting the podcast. You can also leave us a feedback and a rating on Spotify. That's also going to go a long way. We can grow there. If you're a Spotify person, check us out on YouTube. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Turn on your notifications if you're on YouTube. YouTube.com/crashthepond. We have videos of the podcast. We have clips of the podcast. We have player breakdowns. the YouTube I think has become a really good resource if you're a fan of the show, and you get more I think that way too. So just check them all out. Check out our website crashthepond.com. Follow Jake on Twitter at reindeergames91. I'm on Twitter, Felix Sicard. And on that note, thank you for listening, everyone. I am so happy that the Trevor Zegras is signed, that we don't have to do this anymore. And on that note, talk to you soon. Have a good one.
Bye.